Thank you all for joining today. I thought long and hard, but my decision was pretty easy. At 15 years old, when this whole thing got started, I was playing with the youth national team, needing advice as to what to do next as I was looking to become a professional. And I met a man named Richard Motzkin, who would then become my agent and has been my agent, advisor, friend, father figure for 26 years now. So he's appropriate because he's seen me every step of the way, like a child growing up. And I'm excited to have him introduce me.
That's awesome. Very good. So we'll open it up to questions now. Just another friendly reminder, identify yourself, unmute yourself, and we'll get it going. Landon does have a hard out at 45 after the hour. What is it? 1:45, I believe, Pacific Coast, 3:45 Central, 4:45 Eastern time zone. And with that, we will open it up to questions. Andrew, please go ahead.
Thank you, Gina. I really appreciate that. I'm Andrew Jones for Manscaping ESPN and Believe Network. Landon, once again, congratulations on this whole achievement towards this. From the moment you got that surprise announcement on the Fox Soccer Tonight on their World Cup broadcast towards this moment, what's been just your whole thoughts towards preparing for that introduction in that speech of yours? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, first, kind of getting goosebumps thinking about it. The first camp I ever had with the national team, Bees was at, with the youth national team. And so me and Bees have known each other since we were 15. And so having him there just made it better. It felt like we had achieved so much. We have similar stories in that we come from two very different parts of the country, but we both grew up very poor in small towns in America and made it. And so there's a real connection there between the two of us, and I'm really excited to go in with him. Since then, to be honest, it's a lot of organizing because it's kind of like having a wedding. It's about you, but it's kind of not too. It's about all the other people involved. So thankfully, Jordan and Gina have done a phenomenal job. My wife has stepped up and kind of handled a lot of the logistics, but it's just trying to figure out who can get there and be there and who can be a part of it. And that's been a really fun process because it makes you really stop and think about who would you really want there. And I've enjoyed that process a lot.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll go to Phil West, then Ronald Blum. Go ahead, Phil.
Hi, Phil West from the Striker. Good to see you, Landon. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a little bit. I mean, obviously, you talk about starting at 15. You've been obviously youth national team player. You've played in MLS. Now you're coaching. You've done commenting. So just kind of thinking about, since this is sort of a time for reflecting back on the career, just thinking about the incredible growth that's happened in American soccer and just kind of what you think has been maybe most important or what you've been kind of most proud to be part of in that long journey from where it was to where it is now.
I think all of it. It's a good question. So I think all of it. I used to tell people, and I still tell people, we were not only players or, at some points commentators or involved on the soccer side, the business side. We're also ambassadors all the time. And especially in the early part of the career, we were trying to sell the game in America. The generation before us was trying to sell the game, and generation before that. And it's been a long, well, feels long, relatively short period of time, but a long struggle to really push the game forward. And then, you see Gina's backdrop of this beautiful stadium in Frisco. You see, I went and visited the Hall of Fame a few years ago, and what Jordan has done there, you wouldn't have imagined that many, many years ago. But all of us have just worked really hard to contribute. So all of it, I'm proud of, and all of it, I'm really happy that I was able to be a part of it. And this is a nice way to be acknowledged for that.
Thanks, Phil. We'll go to Ron, then Charlie Beam. Go ahead, Ron.
Hey, Landon, congratulations.
Hey, Ron. Thank you. You dressed up for me. Thanks, man.
looking at the hiring of Croker yesterday, after the Reyna Berhalter feud with Ernie and Brian in the middle, was an outsider needed to come into U.S. soccer? And would you like to be considered as a candidate for the coaching job going forward as he looks at it?
No to your second question. I'm not involved in these conversations, right? So I always hesitate to comment when I don't have context. What I think is clear to everyone is that what went on was not good for anybody, and for, we're going in a week and a half. I am, to Frisco to celebrate what's right about U.S. soccer, and I think we need to get that back on the men's side, and get our house in order. So whoever that is, or however that happens, that's great. Do I want to be a candidate? No. Do I want to help? Absolutely. And so if there's ways that I can help, then I want to be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Charlie.
Hi, Landon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, congrats on your induction. I guess this is a two-parter, but kind of the same topic. We talked about, I guess, like legendary players' goodbyes in kind of this sports discourse with Tom Brady and the comebacks, and sort of, how tough it can be to know when it's time for a new chapter. And I kind of wanted to ask you what your reflections are now when you look back on, sort of how you finished your career and your relationship with the game, and figuring out how you wanted to, transition. And so I'll let you answer that, and then I have a second part of that, if that's okay.
Sure. It's very difficult. I consider myself one of the more, I would say, self-aware athletes who took time to think about my future and my career, and it was still really hard. So you can imagine if someone gets to 30, 31, 32, and they haven't thought about any of it, it becomes almost impossible to navigate. I've tried to make decisions in my life based on a few things, on what I think will bring me joy, what's good for myself and the people around me. And I realize with the greater public, it's not always the most popular decisions, but I've tried to make decisions with those tenets as the backdrop. And so I enjoyed every step. I enjoyed going to Leon. I enjoyed playing indoor soccer. I enjoyed being off for a few years. I've enjoyed coaching for a few years. I enjoy commentating. Some of them bring me real joy. Some of them are just fun. And to be honest, I'm still, I don't even want to use the phrase figuring it out. I do what feels right in the moment and at the time. And that can change. And I know some people who have their lives sort of planned out in 5-year, 10-year increments. That probably makes no sense, but it's the way I am. And I'm 41 now. There's not a lot of that's going to change. I figured that out at a pretty early age, and I'm comfortable with that.
And along those lines, and I hate to bring up something that's not entirely positive, but your departure from the national team was kind of strange. I mean, covering at the time, what seemed like a riff with Jurgen and the farewell game. I don't know if that left did that leave any kind of a mark on you, or any frustration there? And how do you look back on it now?
It's not the way I wanted it to end, but most people don't get the choice. I mean, most people don't get to choose to retire. I didn't, and I was fortunate to get to choose when I wanted to retire. I was, probably no longer going to play with get chosen to play with the national team anyway. But I was at least part of that process and getting to have a send-off game, which a lot of people don't. But those things were beyond my control to some extent, right? You as an athlete, everyone has a timeline, and nobody's different. And eventually you're going to be done. And I was fortunate that I got to control some of it, or a decent part of it, and most people don't. So I am grateful for that still.
Thanks, and congrats.
You're welcome, Charles.
Thanks, Charlie. We'll go to Stephen and then Michael. Go ahead, please, Stephen.
Yeah, hi, Stephen Leventhal, SRN Broadcasting. Congratulations, Landon.
Thank you, Steve.
Just a quick question. As somebody who's competed in the upper echelons of soccer at the world stage, what do you think we need to do in this country so that when we compete in a World Cup, it's not just making the knockout stage, but that we have the ability to win some games and really compete with the top clubs, the top countries in the world?
Well, I think getting caught up in the outcome of a World Cup that happens every 4 years is the wrong approach. If we're just focused on how do we go into this 4-week tournament and be successful, I think you're forgetting the important piece. To me, I have kids now. I'm going to my boys' soccer practice tonight. It is very clear to me now that the path to that, what you're talking about, is in how we develop players. We have all the resources now in America. We have players playing at a high level here and all around the world. And so just making better players, developing better players is eventually going to get us there. You can have a coach you need a coach who does a good job in getting the players together during a World Cup and succeeding, but ultimately it's the players. Messi and Mbappe are in the final for a reason, and they have good players around them. So the only path to that is by continuing to develop world-class players. And we're on the path. It takes time, but that's the only way you get there. I feel very strongly about that.
Right. Thanks, Stephen. We'll go to Michael Lewis, then Leander. You're up, Michael.
Thank you. Hey, Landon, congratulations. Well
Nice to see you.
deserved.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Same here and everything. Got a couple questions for you. One about soccer and one not. First of all, have you ever second guessed yourself in any of your career decisions
Yes,
that you made? And
all the time.
and any that you'd like to talk about? And two, if you weren't a soccer player, what do you think you'd be doing in your life? Pelé once was asked that question, and he said he was going to be an airline pilot. So you can't use that as an answer. Sorry.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna. Yes, I think about and second guess a lot of things every day. I second guess all the time whether I should have left Leverkusen or not when I was there. I wish I had enough guidance for people to help me understand that this was going to take time and it was a process in order to get a chance to play. I was nowhere near ready to play in hindsight. At the time, I thought I was. Yeah, that's probably the one that sticks out the most. Should I have stayed at Everton? Maybe, right? But again, like I told Charles, the decisions I made were, not necessarily short term, but they just felt right in the moment. And you trust your gut, and sometimes you look back and go, okay, maybe that wasn't right. But I still, I think, took advantage of all the opportunities I had for the most part, and did my best. Not perfect. To your second question, I mean, I have no idea. I think I have got very, very, very good genes from my family on both sides. And so I think I would have the ability to be successful at a lot of things. I just don't know where the passion would be. I don't know where the passion would come from. So I don't know. I don't know. Now I love being a parent. I love being a husband. Getting into golf. I love tennis. So I have some different passions. It's important for me to always have passions. But yeah, it's hard to say. Not an airplane pilot though. No passion there.
I hear you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Go ahead, Leander. Then we'll go to Jim Alexander.
Hey, Landon, it's Leander Sharlockins, coming at you from a car outside of my son's karate lesson. So I hear you on taking your kid to soccer night.
Yeah.
How did you feel about being the face of American men's soccer? Was that ever something that was burdensome to you, that felt onerous? And if so, how did you cope with that?
Yeah, early on, no, because I wasn't aware of I wasn't aware of that. I don't know if it was intentional from MLS or US Soccer to push or promote. They're probably like always looking for stars and trying to promote people. And at early stages of my career, no. As I got older, it did. And the way it manifested was, so when I started my career playing in MLS, we'd start the season in March, and all through the year, I was excited to play every week. And then when I hit sort of like maybe late 20s, it was like, instead of it being November when the season ended, maybe in like September, I would start to go, oh, season's getting long. And then the next year it'd be August, and the next year it'd be July, where I was going, oh. And by the end, I think because of all of that, there was the physical aspect, but I think just emotionally, psychologically taking all of that on for so many years just started to wear me out and kind of lose some of the joy, right? And that's why by the end, I knew it was time, even though I was still young enough to keep playing. I was just losing some of that joy, so that by May I was going, oh man, the season's long. I'm gonna have to grind through the summer, and that's not a place to enjoy the game from. So I knew it was time. So I just think it was a cumulative process that just sort of wore me out. And I don't remember an exact moment. It was just cumulative over time that it just started to weigh on me mentally too.
Do you think your career might have unwound differently if you'd had maybe some other players to help kind of share that burden around you?
Maybe. I mean, let's be honest, the ego loves that too, right? So I loved it and I thrived on it. You know, it's why I wanted to take all the penalties. It's why I wanted to win all the time, because I loved it. So maybe it might have taken some of it off. Yeah. And I'm thankful every day that social media wasn't around for a lot of reasons, but it would have just piled that on and made it more difficult.
Thank you, Landon.
Thank you, Leander.
Thanks, Leander. I think we're all glad social media wasn't around back in the day.
Amen.
We'll go to Jim and then Ramon Cortez. Go ahead, please, Jim.
Hey, Landon. Jim Alexander from the Southern California News Group and the Press Enterprise in Riverside. Thanks for doing this and congratulations. You've referenced your roots in the game and playing youth soccer out here and whatnot. Looking back, what kind of foundation did that help build for your career?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? It might have frozen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it was vital. I didn't grow up in an era where we had great development. But I was fortunate that I had one coach in particular who was well ahead of his time and made it so that everything we did was with the ball. And that sounds pretty obvious now, but it was very unique at the time. We had a lot of American football coaches, baseball coaches, et cetera, who didn't know the game. And there'd be a lot of running and fitness and things that didn't, and I just developed an ability with the ball that other kids didn't have. And so that made me, that put me ahead of the curve in a lot of ways. And then being in Redlands, in the Inland Empire growing up, just so many kids that did want to play soccer. And I think if you grew up at that time in other parts of the country without the Latin influence, heavy Mexican influence, it wouldn't have been the same. And so the kids I was around growing up all wanted to play soccer for the most part. Played other sports a little bit too, but it was unique, you know, being in Ontario and then in Redlands, in what I would call are, you know, relatively poor areas, actually helped me a lot on the soccer field.
Which coach was that, by the way?
His name was Clint Greenwood.
Okay.
Mhm.
What was his background?
He's Welsh. Yeah, he came over from Wales and then he just developed this style and ability to just get everything we did was with the ball. So I was so much more comfortable with the ball than almost anybody I played with until I became a pro.
Okay. Well, thank you very much and again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. We'll go to Ramon Cortez, then Carlos Rodriguez. Go ahead, Ramon.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Ramon from Arizona Deportivo.
Hi, Ramon.
I have two questions. First question I wanted to ask, now that you're retired, what do you think, or how do you think the U.S. national team is going to go on now and from now on forward? And then the second question. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's not a good thing if any of us retire and the national team or the sport doesn't get better, right? Our goal is to make it better, just like those before us wanted to make it better for us. So the national team I kind of alluded to earlier, that's sort of the end product. I think the focus needs to stay where it is now, with lots and lots of high-level young athletes developing well in our country. And that ultimately will make all of the national team, MLS, USL, the whole pyramid a lot better.
Thank you. And then the second question I have, which is kind of including with that, those young soccer players and those upcoming players, how would you like give them tips to get ready for like a national World Cup if they ever were to?
Yeah, there's a lot in that. I think what we've probably gotten away from, so generally in life, things go from one end of the spectrum to the other when there are problems. An example of that is if you have a coach who's very laid back and relaxed and gets fired, clubs often, or organizations often, then will take someone who's very much like a dictator and very strict. And so human beings tend to go to opposite ends of the spectrum. So when things didn't go well in 2018, we didn't qualify for the World Cup. I think people tend to think, okay, we just need more practice, more training, more with kids to develop players in that way, more organized practices. And I think that is the other end of the spectrum that is also not healthy. What we've lost a little bit is kids just going out and playing and learning on their own. I was the extreme example of that. Clint Dempsey, Bees were the extremes of that. We were out on our own all the time with very little structure. I'm not advocating for that either, but a healthy mix I think would be important. So how do you facilitate that is a difficult question because we didn't really have a choice at the time. We didn't have organized structure, but I think more of that would probably make some of our young players who are talented even better.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Go ahead, please, Carlos.
Muchas gracias. Landon, buenas tardes.
Thanks, Enrique. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you again, Gina. Landon, you seem to have a lot of fun with Clint Dempsey over the course of your time in Qatar, and especially with the whole announcement, as well as you having fun with Ian Dark. Could you talk about that whole time, with Clint there on set and with Ian when you guys were in the booth, and just, your thoughts on any of the excitement towards the young players that are developing in this country from the path that you, DeMarcus, went and set from how you took stage at the World Cup in 2002?
With time, Andrew, hopefully you gain wisdom. And, Clint and I, during our career, we were competitive because we're both competitive, right? And the good thing for US soccer is that it made US soccer better because we were teammates and we wanted to win, but we also wanted to be the man, right? And that's part of it. The beauty of time and getting older, having kids, et cetera, is, and then not playing, is you lose that competitive edge and you can just be honest. And honestly, having 4 weeks together with Clint in that environment really meant a lot to me. And I really enjoyed just spending time with him, learning about him as a dad. He loves to golf now. We both could let down our guard and just have fun and enjoy it. And so when he, stormed into the stage per Gina's grand master plan to announce that we had been inducted, it was a really special moment. because the three of us put in a lot to get to that place. So that was cool. I enjoyed it. And Ian, there's what I've learned in my, pretty brief commentating is there are two types of play-by-play people. One makes it a little bit more about them, and they're the main voice, and and the other wants the color commentator, the analyst, to succeed, right? Or to set them up to do that. And Ian, from day one, he didn't have to say it. Just when we were in the booth, he would say things to bring me in and make me look good and help me. Or he would look at me when it was time to say something, because he has all the experience. And he was the ultimate team player. And I really enjoyed it. I hope people enjoyed listening. I thought it was really enjoyable and fun, and it allowed me to show a little bit of my knowledge, because he was so selfless in that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. We'll go to Will Clark, then Daniel Olea. Go ahead, Will.
Perfect. Thanks, Gina. Hey, Landon. Will Clark with Soccer Pints. Congrats on all of your accomplishments, and thanks for the time today. I would love to hear about your experience with the first ever residency program and how that helped shape you as a professional. And then when you look back on everything in your U.S. soccer career, thinking about being a part of that first residency program with Coach Ellinger and winning the Golden Ball at the U17 World Cup, your first call up, your first goal. What's your favorite memory with U.S. soccer?
Great question. My career wouldn't have been what it was without residency. So I was at a tipping point where I needed to be challenged a lot more. I was playing high school soccer, club soccer, but it was nowhere near good enough to challenge me and push me. So going to residency was perfect timing for me. The perfect setup. It was so far from home. I didn't have any time to do anything else except just get better. And I loved it. Being a part of that team for such a long time gave us this unity that other teams didn't have. And it allowed us to get to the semifinals of the World Cup. And it allowed all of us to showcase ourselves. And that helped me then get a chance with the Olympic team. It gave me more minutes at Leverkusen with the reserve team, which I hadn't been getting before. It literally propelled everything from there on. So that time was priceless. It was so valuable to my development at that time. And John Ellinger, who will be in Frisco as well, he knew how to motivate us, and he was the perfect coach at the perfect time for us. You said favorite memory? Yeah, I mean, that's hard to say. There's so many. The games kind of speak for themselves. The moments speak for themselves. So those memories are public, and people are aware of. But getting to live life with 20, 30, 40 other people who are very uniquely qualified to do what you do it's just an interesting experience in life. And there's no blueprint for each individual's life. My life is what it was, but having the ability to live that with others has been just so enjoyable. That's why people miss that so much. Being part of a locker room every morning is more memorable than what happens on the field, because it's such
Death, taxes, and Wi-Fi slowing down. The three guarantees in life. I'm telling you. Let's give it just a second here. There we go. Froze for a second.
all right.
And it was poetry you were waxing. I know it was. Talking about being with different people and
just being. That's why people miss it when they're done, because being with people who you connect with in that way is really special. So
we have about 10 minutes left, as Landon does have a hard out at 45 after the hour. We'll go to Daniel, Henrique, back to Leander, and we'll wrap it up with Jorn. So go ahead, please, Daniel.
¿Qué tal, Landon? Muy buenas tardes.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. We will go to Henrique, then Leander.
Hi. Henrique Hippo here, RBS TV reporter in Brazil. First of all, congratulations for inductee. I would like to talk about a specific game in 2009, the Confederations Cup final against Brazil. The USMNT came very close to winning. That would be the biggest W to the United States in international football. Today, what you could have done different to have won that match? And if you had won, do you think the USMT level would be better today because it could encourage young players even more?
I don't think the result of that game made any difference in that way. What we could have done better was not have to play against Brazil that day. At that time, well, not at that time, at any time, Brazil are so explosive and dynamic. And so when we went in at halftime 2-0, the goal was to get 15 minutes into the second half and not give up any real chances. And unfortunately, after I think 5 minutes, we gave up a goal, and then we were just under pressure. It was still a great tournament for us. We were proud of it, but we just played against a better team. And so a great memory, a day I'll never forget. And it was still fun to be a part of.
All right, Leander, back to you.
Hey, Landon, thanks for letting me get greedy again here. I've been rewatching the games from the 2002 World Cup for the book I'm writing, and the confidence and the swagger in that team is really remarkable, and I think an outlier when you look at sort of the U.S. body of work at the modern World Cups. What was it about that team that allowed you guys to play that freely and that confidently?
Mm-hmm. There are a few factors. One is Bruce, right? He was the perfect coach at that time for our group. It's particularly impressive given what happened in '98 and that there were some guys there from '98 still. I think the other two factors, we had me and DeMarcus, and we didn't care. We had gone from the 17s and finishing fourth to the Olympics and finishing fourth. And, we had beat all these teams and played against all these great players. And we thought, why can't we do that here? And I think that probably carried into the group a little bit. Clint Mathis, who was just carefree and brash and fun and just gave that excitement to the group. But then it was mixed with the last piece was a group of really good veteran players who knew exactly what we were. We had a really, really clear identity when we played teams that were better than us, and a really clear identity when we played teams that we were better than. And when we were better than a team, we just went after them and put them under pressure and just pounded away until the door broke. When we played against teams that were better than us, we were very comfortable defending and then counterattacking. And we were ruthless at it because we had some good quality players up the field. So all of that made it perfect time for that team to do well. And that was probably all in all, that was probably the best team I've ever been a part of.
Thank you.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Jorn. Fire away, Jorn.
Yep. One last question, Landon. As you're getting ready to come here next week to get put into the Hall of Fame, my question is for you, what does it mean to you to become a member of the National Soccer Hall of Fame and a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Probably sound weird, but just take it for what it is. Now that and I'm not patronizing here. Now that the Hall of Fame it feels more legitimate to me. It feels more meaningful to me. So, not to knock what happened in the past in Oneonta and how that was handled, but this just feels more legitimate. It feels like it has more legitimacy now. And I realize it's a subjective award, but that being said, I know people take it seriously and vote seriously. And so that makes it meaningful. Mostly it's the people. It's the people involved that have helped along the way that make it special. And I've been very fortunate in my life to start where I started and end up where I'm going to end up next weekend. And I don't take that for granted ever. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.